just moving item number 15, talking it up under 8 so that we can get engineering firm out of here at a reasonable hour. Right. Any other additions or adjustments to the agenda?
Mr. Chairman, we are going to have executive session. Session 20 executive session if needed. Should we announce that we will have one?
Guess you already did.
Okay.
Mark?
No, I'm.
Duncan? Rosemary, Tom? All right.
Was there a place, Rosemary, to sign on the payroll?
Yeah, backside of that first page. First page, backside. Right there.
Did I miss that one too?
Yes, you did.
Invoices and orders are going around. Next item is public comment.
No, just.
Is there any public comment? Speak now. I guess we got none. Next item is select board issues or concerns. Are there any issues or concerns from the select board? I have one. We had talked a while back about siltation going in the highway right away at a couple of properties. And I'm still seeing that happening. I would like that followed up on by somebody.
Like 4 properties.
Yep.
Same.
Far as I know, yeah. I don't know of any additions. Any other issues or concerns? Next up, we have planned purchases. In front of us, for clarity, we have a request to spend $2,979.75 on tires for the backhoe from Marshall Tire Group. What are the board's wishes?
So moved, Mr. Chairman.
Second.
I assume that motion was to approve the expense.
Obviously.
Moving a second, any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And the ayes have it.
Mr. Chairman, just getting back to that packet, it talks about the tobacco tires that I had mentioned last week. And it said in the packet that those were quoted for agricultural tires, but they're actually not. Firestone Force from the website states that they are used on industrial tractors, backhoe loaders, and backhoes and rough terrain workers. So that was kind of an error in that packet.
Okay. Next up is the committee report from the Historic Society. I believe we have Dick Seamay's here. Would you mind sitting in that chair just so the mic can pick you up?
Sure.
Wherever you would look. It's a good attitude.
So we have your report in front of us. Is there anything else you'd like to go over? Questions the select board has? You want to do a little presentation? What works best for you?
I don't have a presentation. I'm here at your request.
At our request.
They are.
Yeah, it was us.
Yeah, no.
I do see that you're a couple members short, and I did get a chance to see your strategic plan. It was talking about member growth. Is there plans for that? Conversations?
There's always a plan for it. Just that it's not a successful endeavor. You know, maybe it's time to put out another note to the public that we mention it frequently and
They're not beating the door.
they aren't.
All the advertising we've done has been local to Johnson only. Do you want to try to do some in the newspaper and see if we can switch around the communities, or are you more focused on residents?
Well, I think we probably, given that it's the Johnson Historical Society, I guess we'd like to have it local. My thoughts, but
Be nice to get, I hate to say this, but some multi-generation people on that board.
Absolutely.
You know, because
The group around our table is all gray.
yeah, because my concern is,
Is that a bad thing or a good thing?
It's historic.
Yeah. You feel that the Historical Society is doing a good job of capturing present day events? Because they will become history.
We're beginning to a little more.
That,
Yeah, we
you have somebody
had some
that
conversation about it
takes pictures and stuff.
recently. Well, I don't know that we,
Everybody.
not with, yeah.
Yeah, because I love your postings and I go through the pictures and I recognize people and it's wonderful. And I'm just thinking, I hope that somebody got pictures of the eclipse. The place was amazing during the eclipse. You know, things like that should be, you know, future generations should all want to know that Evan was running the show.
Linda.
At the
is-
Historic Society?
Yeah.
Linda
Stuff
is
like
the
that.
official town historian,
Yeah.
and she has certainly taken lots of pictures.
I'm sure.
I don't know
Yeah.
that she is.
It's just-
I don't know that she was at the eclipse event. but,
I love the stuff you post out on Facebook. I always go through it, scroll through, and you know, I donate to the historical.
Well, that goes to Linda.
Yeah. Okay.
She spends a lot of time
Yeah.
putting together the newsletter, Facebook,
Yeah.
Facebook posts.
Have you, there's been a trend that I've noticed, you know, kind of around Vermont, where volunteers are going down, right? Not
Yep.
just in the store. And the response to that has been like project-based volunteers, so not to be part of the historical society for a whole year, but to say, hey, we have this project, we're looking for volunteers to help with this task. And that, have you guys talked about that at all, and try to, and then you get your foot in the door, and then you can like, it's a way to try to pique interest without a bigger.
It's a good point.
Yeah, there's some things.
And it's,
Well, they have a great turnout for cooking hot dogs and pies. And all of those folks. in
there is
that-
a great, there's a great support
Yeah.
group that are doing, making all those pies,
Wow.
and they're all donated.
Lois has a comment, I believe.
Yeah, I just wanted to comment a little on that. I was going to mention the Tuesday Night Live horror volunteers. They work for that, but we also have other small groups going. Barbara Bach is just a Facebook with Linda. Always. The session committee has a couple of outside people, including one year select board members. So anytime we have a chance, we give people the kind of opportunity that they're happy to do because volunteers can't do it.
No, I understand. You get my yardsticks, I leave up against the door. Probably don't remember.
Oh, a while back.
A while back, I had a whole pile of yardsticks from Johnson businesses.
Did you leave your information, so
No,
when it goes time to accession it, we know who it was?
they haven't ever given me credit for anything anyway.
Well, I didn't say we were gonna give you credit for anything, I just said we want to know who left it.
Yeah.
Your credit manager?
No, but I think I gave the Salibi sign. It's on the wall there, that came from me.
The person who has donated is listed on the computer program.
Oh,
So
there you go.
anytime you go in and look up the pigs, it's part of the session.
Wonderful.
But,
I have a lot more to give you when you get a bigger space.
but your name is in there, Mark. If you put Mark Woodard, it's not right up.
We have a lot of space upstairs.
Good. I've got a pile of stuff that's gonna come your way. Johnson only.
Yeah.
Speaking of upstairs, I know you said in here that Randall is looking for opportunities. I think I mentioned this to Lois a while ago, that Sheldon Historical Society got a large donation, not a donation, a grant to install an elevator. so that they can use the upstairs in their building. So I don't know if that's anything anybody's thinking about or talking about, but it's certainly one thing that would make it.
There's lots of items like that that have been mentioned. We've got nothing concrete, and Randall, was in a while ago and was just gonna see what was out there. We haven't got any shovel-ready projects with design or whatever, but yeah.
I don't think the whole select board's been, to see all that good work that's been done upstairs. Yeah.
Oh, no, I would certainly invite all of you, urge all of you to come and take a look.
I have in my mind what it looked like pre any work. It was pretty.
Well, it's really nice now, I can tell you that.
It's pretty disgusting, that, full of pizza boxes.
Yeah, okay. And lots of other stuff.
Yeah,
Were they from Johnson Business?
they were, but boy, they were, well, it was a trash heap, it was bad.
Randall's report said you're looking for an architect to do a condition assessment of the building, is that? What,
That may be that's something that he's talking about. He has specifically discussed that with us.
That's under his report. This is the Historic Societies. But condition assessment, I guess, and full plans to move upstairs would be different. So,
Yeah, and we're about to enter budget season, so I know that there's been a list of things in the past that didn't make it building wise.
Correct.
It would be good.
they didn't
perhaps
quite
to
make
get
it onto this.
a refreshment, what's that?
They didn't quite make it onto the report.
Well, he said see list
Right,
of.
see
see
That
Previous-
list
list,
of-
that list has been
previous
submitted
submitted.
previously.
Yeah,
And I read it on the computer.
Right.
Yeah.
For new board members, maybe it would have been nice to have it here, but if you want it here, we could,
Yeah.
Tom could send it to you.
Liaison from the board to the historic.
Wait,
The most historic.
It would be, we have money in the budget to get stuff done before June 30th. And if there could be like if you guys jump on like a really quick plan to put together what work you want done in the spring. So then when I meet with Kelly to put together the budget for 2026, then we know what's already gonna get done versus, because this list is extensive and expensive.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? So if we had some kind of like a priority list to say, fix the roof, fix this, we can do that under 2025, and then 2026, we need the budget X, right? That kind of thing. We're probably late to the game, and I'll take responsibility for that. Maybe if you, Kelly, and I got together, we can look at the list, or go to the meet, I can meet you there, and we can just, doesn't matter what the items are, but just put it on paper, so then the whole board knows to then budget for it and get it done.
The list is there. I think it's just close.
The list is here, and Tom, you put a value amount on a lot of those. I don't know if I've got it here.
Yeah.
Some shots and values on all
Yeah.
the items.
Gina, I spent quite a little bit of time a year ago.
Yes, you've had it a while.
So did the porch roof get dealt with?
I mean, there's
That seemed to be a pressing issue last year.
porch roof and there's these knee braces that need work ASAP. Which probably be the first thing in the spring.
But if anybody's got any contractor contacts or somebody, that's been our huge problem, is finding somebody to even come and look at it.
I mean, the knee braces to me is a larger conversation. Because that's for the back apartment, right?
It's their exit, yeah.
But if the long-term plan of the Historic Society is to just have the building, maybe we're better off, I'm just speaking personally, not for the board, to just not have tenants and close that space so that the architect can do their deal and we're not paying money now to in the future rip it out.
Even if I doubt that there's gonna be a recommendation coming for Donnie's apartment to incorporate that in the historical society, maybe I'm wrong. But even if they did, they'd still need, that outdoor staircase is fire egress from that space, so you'd need it one way or the other, I think. I don't think it would be wasted.
But if you open up the wall in between. I'm not sure, I'm not far.
There is no wall in between,
No. It's completely separate. Maybe we put a bridge.
totally separate, you could build a bridge. I
Build
guess,
bridges.
yeah.
Be a
You could
transportation.
probably get access to the trampoline. room, couldn't you?
From the what?
The trampoline.
Trampoline? Perhaps, I don't know.
I wouldn't jump around in there too much if I were you.
Yeah, that's what I was thinking, the back of that wall.
Well, that trampoline room needs attention.
Yes,
Some part of that deal.
it's on,
Randall's
yeah,
got something.
that's on that, it's on the list. Yep.
Any further discussion?
You have a successful pie summer?
Yes,
Sold
given the
piles of
fact,
them.
given the fact that, you know, 3 rainy days.
Yeah, a couple rainy
Rainy
days.
evenings, if we get one that, is sunshine every day. You know, I'm a little bit sick of saying it, oh, it's raining, it must be Tuesday.
You had a pretty good stretch for many years that it was sunny on Tuesday, yeah.
You guys did okay.
And yes,
Let
this
you
year
guys-
was okay, yeah, it was well considering.
I also just want to say that I've had an opportunity to visit a lot of historical societies around mostly northern Vermont. And Johnson's ranks right up there with any of them. And the programs that the Historical Society puts on, first class, really good. And the newsletter is great. I think you guys are doing a great job.
Appreciate the comment.
Everybody should be extremely appreciative of the hard work you all do.
Thank you very much.
All right,
Thanks, Dick.
Yep.
Yeah, appreciate it.
Thank you.
Thank you. Would the board like for beautification to be the next committee report? Have we run through the whole list? We don't really have a rec committee.
Conservation, we did tree board, we did skate park in the spring.
Skate park was the first one.
Yeah.
We did Tuesday Night Live in the bread oven.
We're ready to, and we're on vacation.
I feel like there's one I'm forgetting.
Yeah,
But,
I do too. But rail trails,
Rail trail.
Rail Trail's done it.
yeah, Yeah. I'm just trying to think of all the committees.
No, that's why I look at the spreadsheet there in front of me. I think we're ready for beautification to come back, and they're gonna be here in December anyways, so.
How's the board feel about that?
Sounds good.
Sounds good.
All right. Pardon me, are you here for the salt selection?
Can be, back with Travis, and here.
They're approved, but if you were hanging out for any specific item, I was gonna possibly shift it up. If the board wished. But if you're good, you're good.
That blew through.
All right, next on our list is the Community Economic Development Specialist update. Pretty good report, Randall. Thank you very much. There are 2 action items, I believe, Randall, one pertaining to the NEPA contract. Please correct me if I'm wrong. And one pertaining to participating in a grant application for the Green Mountain Byways.
Yes, I mean, there's possibly a third. I don't think it rises to the level of an action item, and I don't think that the board needs to make a motion, but I did indicate that I could, if the board was interested, have the state treasurer come before the board and give a presentation about housing and economic development. I don't think that's, like I said, I don't think that's a well, you would tell me, obviously, whether that's a board motion or not, or if it's just a temperature check and I can pursue it and see if it's possible, but those are the only two formal decision points as far as I know.
Yeah, maybe I'm mistaken too. I thought that was if there was interest from the board, so. Is there board questions on the NEPA contract? I had talked with Duncan and it does fit in what we had budgeted for, not that we have much of a choice if it's required. Is that correct, Randall?
Yeah, and it's also a matter of something that was accounted for by NBRC as well. It's essentially that there was a sort of miscellaneous consultant fee piece that was kind of there, and this is just memorializing or providing specificity for a specific use of that outside consultant fees, which is for the phase 1 environmental.
Okay. And I feel like I'm asking all the questions.
I've got one when you get that.
The revisions to the existing contract, do you think we'll have those for our next board meeting, or would it be the second meeting in December?
That would probably be a Mumley question as to whether or not, I'm assuming there's going to be a little discussion from Mumley's side. They were made aware of some items that LCPC flagged, and it's just a matter of hashing that out and making sure everyone's on the same page. So it's also just, it's about the capacity of Mumley to make the changes or whether they agree with the changes, etc.
Yeah, Luke Willie is here. That's just a timing thing.
So Tyler.
Yeah.
Or Tyler.
Yeah, we've got Tyler on
Tyler's
too.
on there.
Yep. Yeah, I think the comments from LCPC were, they wanted a little bit more follow-up on a couple of items. So we're talking about 2 weeks or a month. Is that what?
That was just the generalized
Yeah,
question.
yeah. I think we could probably try to get an answer for that, by the end of the week, maybe. As to whether we can kind of get to where LCPC wants us to be with those items. I think some of it is waiting on other people at the state. So I guess I'm not really prepared to guarantee that we can have all that stuff for 2 weeks, but I would hope that we can come back in 2 weeks and have that information.
Okay.
Yeah.
What did you have, Mark?
Randall, I'm just curious, is the door cracked open at all to allow scope expansion for possible housing, or is that just off the table? Because, here I am working with the housing subcommittee and stuff, and I'm just, maybe you recall, Duncan, is that door closed?
Close, but I think we got pretty clear indication from the people when we went to the bond that they didn't want to, they wanted it for industrial development, not housing.
But that was decided kind of wrong.
Yeah, and you're saying the door is closed, Randall, pretty much?
I'm saying that the select board plays a very large role in determining whether the door is closed. I don't think that from NBRC's perspective that it is necessarily closed. NBRC, as any granting agency would say, this is what you applied for, this is what was named in the application. So they're not going to want to openly and freely just say, hey, anytime anybody wants to kind of pivot, we're here for that. But having put that caveat out there, it's not prohibited. It would not be a prohibited change of scope if the board ever decided that they wanted to do that.
I'm just concerned that if we find ourselves down the road 5-10 years from now with some lots that we have not been able to sell for light industrial use. There is certainly need for housing. So, and you're right, the public did weigh in, want light industrial, but we could bring it in front of them. Yeah.
Well,
10
the
years.
board decided too, that, as you recall, there was a print done with housing on it.
Yeah,
And we said, well, what's this all about? We never talked about housing, and then that was stricken from it, and I can see another plan right here, that none of it's on there.
yeah,
So I think that has been put to bed now.
that it is. It may wake up
I was at a
10
meeting
years from now.
just a week and a half ago, and Pat Ripley talked about the advantages, I think it was called, correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he called it like changing the scope of work to include alternatives. And it's, what it is like, the select board determines what the lots end up being, but if there's alternatives down the road that were included in the grant, then we wouldn't be obligated to return funding if we didn't use the funding for its intended purpose. So if we change the scope of work now to include whatever alternative we want, doesn't matter. It just means that 10 years down the road, okay, industrial park's not filling up. We have to do something with these lots. We can do X, Y, Z alternative that's established now. And that's again, up to the board to determine what it is. And I mean, just because you put it in the grant doesn't mean you have to sell it for that means. And I think Pat offered to come to the meeting and explain, we're really about availability. Now it's strictly to sell. It was like, how do we make sure all these lots sell?
Now, we've kind of gone around the barn here. So if you add that as an additional cost to all of this,
I mean, I usually go to these meetings just for like agenda purposes and making sure that I understand what's going on. I don't know the details. Would that change the cost at all, Randall, or?
I mean, from a design standpoint, I don't think so. I mean, we're basically just showing and permitting, kind of shell lots. We're not really specifying other than a sewer and a water connection. So from our perspective, from a design perspective, I don't think it really, we're not talking about a lot of extra engineering.
well, you've already got a print with that on it.
Yeah.
You already did that.
Right.
Once.
And it's
So
really
you
just.
could submit that.
It's really just labeling, that's really all that was. So, yeah, I mean, that's no problem from our end.
Well, I guess I would say if the board says no, we don't want to have that option right now, then not peaceful. But I think having options is a smart idea.
I guess.
Because I think 10 years from now, we're gonna have some empty lots. Is it housing may, a complex or two may not be a bad idea. But correct me if I'm wrong, has the public said light industrial only?
At the Bonneville informational hearing, that was
I think we heard a lot of people say
heavily
that.
said,
Yeah.
and correct me if I'm wrong, but when it was originally purchased, was that not what was presented to voters, was a
Yeah.
light industrial park?
Yeah, we know
It
that.
was.
Yeah.
And we've had this conversation 3 times now on the board. I think the interest is for it to be a light industrial park.
If
Peter?
10 years down the road, there's still vacant lots up there, I think that would be the perfect time to have that discussion.
I just thought if we left the door cracked open now, it might be a lot easier discussion, but I don't care.
If we use federal money,
I don't have a dog in
for
this.
say housing, like say we did it 10 years down the road, and say, okay, say it's not even housing, say we go like large scale industrial, something different than what the grant was written for. But an alternative, would we have to give that NBRC money back if it was used for anything other than what the grant requested? And I think that was my understanding of Pat's, hey, this is a safety net for the next 10 years versus we want to do this. He was just thinking about it long term. And so how do you, Randall, I mean, you were at that meeting, if you could help elaborate. Was it, if we don't use those lots for what it was intended for, so a different board said we actually want for housing, does that NBRC money have to go back to that lot?
Well, I hate to again continue to equivocate. I think that conversations can happen. I think conversations are have a greater likelihood of success the earlier in the process that you allow for alternate possibilities. But again, initially when I had some discussion with NBRC about it, their piece was, again, you can read it charitably or you can read it uncharitably. If you read it charitably, the application was to install infrastructure to allow entities to connect to that infrastructure. The language that we used for those entities was light industrial. But I think ultimately, if we have a nuanced and careful conversation, the nature of what connects to that infrastructure is somewhat flexible ultimately. The biggest caveat was no NBRC funds can be used to fund the connections themselves between whatever's built there and the infrastructure. NBRC funds can be used for the infrastructure, but it cannot pay for the connections. That was the sort of the red line that they were drawing when it was sort of asked about housing. They were like, whether it's housing that's connecting to this infrastructure or something else, as long as our funds are not paying for those connections, again, this was all, I don't want to like publicly commit one way or the other just because, I don't want to speak for NBRC and their relative flexibility or inflexibility, but I think there's a general attitude of wanting to see projects be successful. I'll just leave it at that.
Are there other questions?
If I can just circle back to that question about impacts to changing use, I guess the only thing that I would throw in there is, as part of the Act 250 permit, we are going to be permitting a range of uses, so as part of that permit, we would probably want to know, whether some kind of residential was going to be involved in that, just so that we could make sure that that was in the permit and we didn't have to amend if that, you know what I mean? So I guess that would probably be the only process that, we would want to be able to address that one way or another. I don't think any of the other permits are going to really matter all that much. And I don't think the design is going to matter that much. But the Act 250 is going to go into uses and it's going to have questions about that kind of thing. So,
Well, you certainly have an impact on water and wastewater and perhaps traffic generation.
yes,
So
yes,
it could change the level of service at that intersection.
yes, yes, it certainly could play into traffic. And as far as wastewater goes, yeah, it certainly will also play into wastewater. Although I think generally speaking, there's kind of an allocation amount that we're kind of putting forward to this. And as each individual use comes online, that will be further kind of refined. So, I think that will be water and sewer will be kind of an ongoing thing related to the allocation for specific uses as it goes. And that, that won't change whether it's industrial or whether it's residential. So.
No, what could change though would be the density of the housing versus the required allocation for that versus an industrial use.
Sure.
Which is generally a little less.
Sure.
So, I mean, if it was fairly intense development, residential development, I could see that requiring more.
Yeah, I mean, when you say residential, I mean, I guess what I'm envisioning is that we take those 5 lots, those 5 smaller lots, and the question of whether those are going to be residential or not. If we're talking about something else in terms of, doing some further, more intense density of residential, then that's probably a different discussion for sure.
Yeah, Well,
Yeah.
yeah, we can close this. We all know my opinions on this anyways. I'm just in favor of keeping the door cracked for possible large, a lot, 30-unit housing complex. But, I'm also a minority, so.
And 30 units is a lot different than talking about 5.
It's a lot
individual
different
Right,
than.
I'm
certainly,
thinking-
certainly if we're talking about a 30-unit apartment building, that certainly will be a
Major change.
yeah, that
Mixed
will have
mixed
an
in with
impact
an
on design.
industrial park. No complaints will happen in the
Yeah,
future.
no, nobody
No.
had any cause for concern about that.
Okay, I guess at this point, unless there's more, I would entertain a motion from the board to approve Lumley Engineering proposal for $20,600 for the NEPA review.
I would make that motion and authorize either Evan or Tom to sign.
There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And the ayes have it. There's 2 more things under Randall's report. One, I think, is really awesome, but maybe it's just me. Randall needs to know if the town wants to participate in the grant application for the Green Mountain Byway.
There's new information from today about that will potentially impact the board's decision, which is that Morristown has declined to participate. And the Village of Hyde Park also sent an email saying that they were not going to be able to participate at this time. So it's not looking as unified as it originally was looking. So that's also to throw into the mix. There was no explanation given by
Really?
either entity.
Do you know if there's potential leeway if, Johnson was to still apply for the grant for 4 signs for our town?
Meaning less signs or
Well,
more signs?
we had the cost proposal for 4 towns and 6 towns, right?
Yep.
But the 4 towns was 16 signs, so 4 per town, and the 6 was 24. I call them signs, panels. I apologize. With 6 towns, it was actually more cost effective to do 4 towns, but could we go about it without other towns and just do 4 for Johnson, or no?
I don't know. It didn't. The person, Laura, who was sort of organizing this as part of the Green Mountain Byway, the chair of the board, she was still soliciting what Johnson's position was. So I assume, but don't know at this point that it's still possible. So I can find that out. You could obviously decide to make it provisional on X, Y, or Z, and I can find out that information and report back. It was a little surprising. I mean, again, it's one of these situations where, like I represent Johnson, on this board as these other folks do, but none of us have decision-making power. So we can be enthusiastic about it, and then you go back to the decision makers and there's no appetite there. So I was surprised just because there was strong support, on the board in terms of its interest to have this project come to fruition. Again, because 2 of the towns already have these panels in their communities, i.e. Stowe and Waterbury.
Does Cambridge?
Cambridge is, I don't believe so, no. I know what their proposals were.
Do you need a motion for a dollar figure tonight, or do you think it'd be okay to just check the temperature of the board and then we could, you could kind of just see from Laura if the other towns are interested, and then we could know what the dollar figure is to approve at our next meeting, or is that gonna be behind a timeline?
Well, I don't, whatever the board decides, what I would propose potentially is a not to exceed amount, like, the board supports it with the idea that it will not exceed the X amount. And if it turns out that the lesser participation changes the cost or whatever, we can just say, well, you all approve this, it's gonna be more than that, and that's that. Or timeline wise, it's a little tricky, like with your schedule of meeting and the grant application, and I can't speak because I'm not applying for the grant, so I can't speak to like the LCPC's capacity to like work on it and then find out like, oh no, people are withdrawing from it, etc. So maybe a not to exceed motion, and if it meets that, we can say, yes, we're going forward as long as this number doesn't change,
Randall, who are the 4 towns?
Well, originally it was going to be Hyde Park, Morristown, Johnson, and Cambridge.
Because this document says Johnson, Morristown, Hyde Park, and Johnson. We're in there.
What is that?
The interpretive panels work plan page that's in here.
Oh yeah, that was produced by the Green Mountain Byway Board.
And LCPC is the one that's making the application.
Yeah, LCPC was going to apply on behalf of the towns.
Is that formally necessary?
Yeah.
You think so?
Doug Mobley was big onto it. I looked at these things. Is it absolutely necessary? No, but I think all this stuff adds to helping our businesses, helping our downtown.
I mean, granted, there is a match here and everything else, but for 16 panels, they're only 2 by 3 feet. They're $2,700 a piece. And if we have 24, they're $2,600. I mean, granted, it's only 20% that we're gonna pay for that, but somebody's really raking somebody over the coals.
I agree, but I also know that a friend of mine, Jen Burton, painted that 4 by 8 piece of pink plywood that's out there by the rail trail for free. So, I don't know, I just think that anything we can do that will make people more interested in coming to downtown and supporting our businesses. I'll make a motion not to exceed 3K. And Randall, you can, if we.
For the combined.
For the
Mark,
town
or-
match?
For the town match.
But we're talking about 2 different projects here. One is interpretive panels. Oh, no, I'm sorry.
They're both
Yeah,
in
24 versus 16. Okay.
Yeah.
Sorry.
And
just for the-
I think Mark's motion just allows a little bit of leeway if there was 3 towns per se, because we don't have the exact cost. So Mark's
And
motion.
I will just,
Sorry, Rand.
I would just remind you that they did say that in-kind contributions count towards the match. So again, if you're gonna have, say, like the road crew install these, it was described that it was something that road crews in other town, when in Stowe had it installed, for instance, their time can count towards the match. So it doesn't necessarily mean an outlay of the full 2176. You can bill the time as a match as well.
Will the state allow us to place the signs within the state's highway right away?
That was not something we discussed.
It should be.
So right now, there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second for further discussion? Sorry.
I'll second.
Okay. Just wanted to make sure it was either dying or moving forward.
I bet it wasn't just dying. I'll tell you the truth.
Well, no.
But there's
Oh,
other.
I will.
So Mark's motion is to proceed with the grant application
With a number not to exceed.
with a not to exceed $3,000 in
Town
town
match.
funds matching. Okay? You're good with that second? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
Nay.
Undo a roll call. Duncan,
Aye.
Mike,
Nay.
Mark,
Aye.
Peter,
Aye.
the ayes have it.
What's your vote?
Doesn't really matter, does it?
I'd like to hear it. I can defend it.
I'm in favor of it.
Okay.
Does that give you guidance enough, Randall?
Yep, I will notify them that Johnson is willing to participate as long as the match on our end doesn't exceed $3,000.
And I don't know if we need a formal motion on this, but I would love to make any sort of contact that Randall can pull together with regard to state treasurer or anybody else in state government who's willing to come and speak to us.
Yeah, especially if they can do it over Zoom. We're not gonna get paycheck to walk in the room.
Yeah, probably not.
That was my next item. Temperature of the board. It sounds overwhelmingly supported so far, but Peter hasn't.
Absolutely.
Mike,
Say again.
getting the state
We're
treasurer.
spending any money. But if we're asking somebody a question, it doesn't cost us anything.
They might
Yeah.
actually give us.
Did you just say $4,500 is just a rounding error for the?
Mark,
Last week?
Mark and everybody else are supportive of that, Randall, if that could be coordinated. And via Zoom would be great. In person's nice, but I get that everybody has some things going on.
Okay, and then I just have a couple quick little things, barring questions, which is just to comment on the Historical Society. I did include in my report that the Preservation Trust, if you recall, they recommended doing a conditions assessment because it had been 10 years since one was done. The contact there is talked to 2 architects. It sort of echoes the concern earlier. They're having a hard time finding someone, so they're reaching out to someone else again to see if they can get someone to come in and do that. And they help provide funding, if not all the funding, to get that condition assessment done. I will remind again that should the board have interest in the, for instance, the issue that you were talking about with the bracing for the apartment, there is money available from the state to rehab apartments. I did inquire as to whether municipalities are able to participate. Typically, it's for homeowners, for citizens. But after some deliberation, they did say, yeah, a municipality can also apply for this. It was in a previous select board report. So I'll just flag that should the board ever decide they want some external funding to help rehab that apartment and potentially fix that issue. There's potential out there. The other thing is that for the grocery store, there's another deadline coming again with this back and forth that keeps happening. Close of business tomorrow. The folks at VEM are waiting to hear something from Pomerleau. So there could be some finality by the close of business tomorrow, or it could be that the decision at the end of close of business tomorrow is that, yes, they're going to keep going. Because basically they were given a deadline. Hey, we need to know, are you still moving forward? We need to know by end of business on the 19th. So there could be a little bit of closure there. Again, there might not be. And then lastly, just to flag again, we were successful in a Building Communities grant application to do some repairs at the Welcome Center for Lamoille Valley Rail Trail. Having applied for that is part of the reason why we weren't able to apply for the Historical Society, because it all comes from this same pool of money, even though it gets funneled into different categories. So I was just flagging that, and that's it, unless you all have other questions.
I have one.
How dare you?
Randall, at the very end, under miscellaneous, you talked about the revolving loan fund. I know that we talked about this. I don't know that we ever actually asked you to pursue this, but the board talked about whether or not we would borrow from the revolving loan fund for the industrial park, and the decision was no. I still believe that it would be important to get a sense from BCDP folks about us retaining that money to loan out to potential businesses to come into that park. As you know from reading the closeout agreement, there's a clawback provision in there where they could ask us to send the money back. I would really hate to see that happen, and I think it would be prudent for us to make a reach out to BCDP and ask them if they would be amenable to the idea of allowing us to retain those funds and loan them out.
Especially with the renewed interest you have in it, Randall.
Oh, go ahead. Sorry to interrupt.
I was gonna say, I support the idea of kind of reaching out and formalizing the don't claw back, or there's an understanding of an extension or something. What were you gonna say, Randall?
Oh, just relative to that last little bit, I'm gonna meet with that business owner. I don't know whether they still have interest in the RLF per se, but they wanted me to kind of come and talk to them about potentially other funding options to help them. So I will be meeting with them on Thursday on at the business site, which I'm looking forward to. I want to see what they have going on. It's great that there's going to be a new business in Johnson. It's exciting. So I'm hoping I can do whatever I can to help them.
All right. I guess,
With the consensus of the board,
yeah, I was gonna
being
ask,
that it's a good,
is the rest of the
good
board in
idea to reach
agreement?
out?
Yeah.
Yeah. With ideally making sure we don't get their revolving loan fund rescinded.
Right, right.
The village still have a revolving loan fund too?
They do.
Yeah, I thought so.
Theirs is old enough that they don't have any requirements on it anymore.
That's like from the 90s, I think.
Babies, yeah.
I don't remember.
Well, thank you very much, Randall. I appreciate all your hard work. Rosemary? There wasn't a budget status report on the agenda, but is there anything?
I just handed it out.
You just handed it out, okay. I wanted to make sure we weren't missing something if there was something that needed to be flagged.
I just. You guys notice, pilot money, we received less than what we said.
Total size? How much?
We budgeted 460 and we got 447,
Was there an
which was down
explanation?
from 490.
492
Yeah.
ish.
Was there an explanation?
Tax rates. That calculation.
At one time I knew, but I couldn't tell you what it is now.
That's by legislature, and then they divvy it up.
It's
So
the,
there's really no, they send a letter, I think it's about this time every year for the next, or maybe it's in August for this year.
We have to do budgets.
Exactly,
when
yeah.
our local representatives were here at this time last year, I believe we had asked that question. They had said that funding will be there for it, but
Well, that's a significant drop from 492.
that's,
10%
you're
reduction.
spot on, it was 494. That we got last year, we budgeted 460.
Tom, can you check into that and ask what the explanation is for?
Yeah.
the
We didn't
lesser
even get
amount?
460,
Um,
50,000. It's 2 cents. on
Bill's
it.
got less too. So.
That's not the A and R one, that's just the
No.
buildings.
How come you're not making more interest?
I got that hooked up yet.
Oh, okay, because I only see 1,750 under other. But we're making more than that.
Okay.
So that's just pilot buildings, that's just for the college.
Yeah.
And pilot land for state park tenant agreement.
That is under,
It's minuscule.
Yeah. I mean,
It's
A&R pilot.
A and R
It's
pilot.
a
yeah.
$25,000 one.
Did that reduce at all?
Well, that's usually about that.
It's a penny on the tax rate.
Mr. Chairman, in the interest of trying to keep moving along, I would make a motion to approve the stormwater contract recommendation from Lumley Engineering for the GEC 3-acre stormwater project.
You kind of skipped one
I did?
item,
Well,
the industrial park next steps.
oh, I thought that was 8.
Well, I tucked 15 up underneath 8, but if we're doing it first, that's fine. There's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
Second.
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed?
I'm gonna abstain, just out of principle.
Fair enough.
Board of the co-op.
Because you're on the board of the co-op.
Did you get that, Donna?
Yep.
The ayes have it.
Can I just make a quick comment about that, now that you've done that? The contract, so MSI is gonna want to purchase the chambers, which is the major expenditure for that project in terms of materials. They want to get those this fall if possible, and store them so that they can kind of lock in that price. We've run that by John Barney. They're fine in terms of the storage piece of that. I just wanted to kind of give the board a heads up that that's gonna, as soon as this gets kind of finalized in contract form with MSI, they're gonna want to talk about that and probably look for some kind of a partial payment for stored materials in order to get that done. So
We have a meeting coming up with Maddie.
we do.
What we'll do is can we reach out to NSI and get the price for the chambers?
Yep.
If I can get that before Maddie, I can run Bachelor with Rosemary.
Okay.
And then we'll get, I think they're about 4 to 6 week reimbursement. So if we can do that.
Okay.
We should be able to line that.
And your signature authority in your motion?
Signature authority would be either the board chair or Tom.
Everybody's okay with that
Yes,
Yeah,
as a clarity?
did you say that the co-op would store the chambers?
Yeah, the co-op has said that they're fine storing them.
Okay. Contract review and signature delegation, industrial park. Was that in there, Tom, as the NEPA placeholder that we dealt with under Randall's report, or is there
Yes,
another
that was
contract?
the contract review. That's all the public contract that only has, is a NEPA contract. And then the only other piece under Randall was just the introductory final design. Can you close that out?
Yeah, we're not at final plan stage yet, but certainly if anybody has any questions or you want to run through kind of current design, I'll say just from our perspective here, this NEPA piece is a big hurdle that we're now able to kind of finally cross after quite a while here. So the green light for the NEPA is gonna really kind of ramp up the timeline now. So now that we can kind of finish that up, get that piece done. The MBRC really wants that NEPA piece to done before any permitting work kind of starts, because they want to make sure that the NEPA work is influencing the design and the permitting. So we've been kind of juggling this NEPA piece for a while now, and now we're finally going to be able to kind of line everything up in proper order, get the NEPA done, and then be ready to start getting finalize the design and get applications submitted. So that's kind of where we're at and where we're headed. There's not a lot to discuss in terms of design changes, from the last time that we were here.
Can I see it really quick?
Yeah, absolutely. If you want to.
I have old people eyes. I think the biggest one originally wasn't there only one lot in the town. Correct me if I'm wrong.
Like entirely in the town?
Entirely in the town, yeah.
I
We have-
think the property line bisects
We have-
part of 2, right?
We have 2 in the town now, which needs to be taken into consideration under town sewer service area amendments. I'm not angry with the way it's drawn. we need to know that.
Yeah.
I thought there was one, that the other one kind of came with it.
Yeah, I think
Yeah,
it's
that
parts of
layout
two,
hasn't changed, in, at least in the, since the last version in 2010. I don't think any of the lots have changed, so.
And that slice is definitely in the mapped area for the proposed changes to the town sewer service.
Right, I just wanted to make sure.
Yeah, no, it absolutely needs to be too.
We do have a meeting that we're working on coordinating right now with the LCPC is helping to kind of set up with the village to sit down and go over final design with them in terms of sewer and water, making sure that we've got everything where they want it in terms of hydrants and connections and all that stuff. So that will be happening here shortly as well.
Any further question on the design?
Once you get through the NEPA review and approved on that, will you be pretty much ready to submit?
Yes.
For the Act 250?
Yeah.
So everything goes really smooth at the Act 250, we could potentially start work on a project in 2025?
Yeah, I mean, my kind of best crystal ball here is, I think we would like to be ready to start getting state applications submitted, shortly after the first of the year. And I think if all goes well, looking at permits in hand for late spring
Really?
to
Then you guys are in your contract or proposed contract, you're gonna do bid documents and
yeah.
all of that
Yeah.
stuff,
So I mean, I think it's
conceivable.
I think it's conceivable that we could be ready to put stuff out to bid. I mean, it would be obviously later than you would want in the construction year, but I mean conceivably by early summer, we could be ready to put this out to bid, and then I guess at that point make a decision whether it makes sense to try to get something through, or whether we kind of table it to hit it early in the next construction season.
Cash flow is gonna be a big factor. Actually brings up the point Rosemary and I talked about today about, and maybe I should just ask it, is as we look at this line of credit for next year, we have Holmes Meadow, Fenway Lane, the library, stormwater at BEC, and the light industrial park. All 5 of those projects, 4 of them are gonna get built next summer. And so those 4, I think we have pretty well lined up for cash flow. Preliminary cash flow, adding the industrial park towards the later end of the fall makes a lot of sense. But I think what could solve that problem is getting a line of credit through as a tax anticipation note. And one of the things Rosemary and I were saying is if the board does approve this line of credit, having it at Union Bank makes the absolute most sense. Because there could be internal transfers from Rosemary's desk as opposed to getting treasurer's checks, deposits, and moving between banks. And so, does the board want Rosemary to put that out to bid, or do you just want, are you okay with just using the internal bank that we already use for the general fund?
I think last meeting we talked about this a little bit. Rosemary was gonna come back under a report next, not this meeting. First meeting in December with a recommendation. Isn't that how we left it? Donna?
I don't remember.
Well, it was came up today, and it's very relevant to this construction timeline, we need that in place if we're gonna make it happen.
But we don't need to make a decision tonight.
No, it's, have it on the back burner.
Rosemary, could you prepare something for the next meeting with a recommendation? Thank you.
I think what was pretty clear at the last meeting was we were all in favor of authorizing the line of credit should it be needed, so.
Right. So that's cash flow things, but we're on design review. It looks like NEPA's gonna kind of ramp that up a little bit. Permitting process anyways.
Yeah, this is, like I say, this clearing this hurdle is gonna be, is gonna accelerate things from our point.
Good to hear it.
Yeah.
Do you
For sure.
envision much of a hurdle with water and sewer connections?
I mean, we've already had, some discussion with them, and like I say, we're gonna, be sitting down with them, again here very shortly and kind of hammer out the final things, but, we certainly haven't had any roadblocks with them yet, so.
Wonderful.
Anything else?
Thank you.
Okay.
I was hoping he'd have a real singer. Our next item is the library.
It seems like a lot of money to us, but that's not really that big a project.
Well, I told you, it's less than, what, 1/5 of the contingency on the Burlington High School project? Total project cost?
Yeah,
is
by.
less than 1/5 of their contingency. The next item is signature delegation for the library moving forward. Tom has a recommendation of Rosemary, which makes perfect sense to me if everybody's comfortable with it, but how would the board like to handle that? Does the library care? Rosemary is the signature delegation authority.
You okay with it?
Well,
I assume that there was a conversation before.
Yeah, we're fine. We love Rosemary.
I'm hearing no rejections. Would somebody like to put a motion on the floor?
I'll move it.
Motion from Duncan, is there a second?
I'll second.
Motion and second, further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And the ayes have it.
Okay, I have a couple of questions.
Uh-oh.
Our RFQ was posted today on the website, and the library board would like to know how, when the bids come in, how that selection is going to happen, and if we can be involved in some way with that.
I can't speak for the board as a whole. I think you guys getting them and reviewing them and weighing in, I would appreciate that, but
So would I.
You want to weigh in, is that what I gather?
Yes, we would like to.
I mean, understanding that the final
Um,
decision comes to us, but there's nothing wrong with them making a recommendation.
Yeah.
And I think we're gonna get some good candidates for sure, so
Mhm. Okay,
I'm fine with that.
Shouldn't we establish a review committee, including a member of the library's choice?
Take it all
To
off the
then make a
board and just put it
recommendation
on
to the
the
board?
Who's gonna serve on the committee?
I don't know, not me.
You got it.
Perfect job.
Mhm.
Certainly open to the concept.
Could the same committee handle both RFQs that are out?
I can handle all. You wanna make a motion?
I'll make a motion to authorize Peter and Tom and a member of the library's choosing to form a committee, a review committee for the 2 RFQs.
Being the moving RFQ and architectural services.
Correct.
There's a motion on the floor.
I will second that.
In a second, is there further discussion?
I don't get to vote against it, right?
No,
You can vote against.
I mean, further discussion, if you truly don't, like, this isn't a hazing thing. It's if you want
It's
to-
not a hazing thing. Okay, then I'm fine.
All right.
You haven't met the library trustees yet, but.
All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All of those opposed? And the ayes have it. I think that sets you up pretty good,
Thank
Yeah.
you, Peter.
for sure.
Yeah.
motion one.
Yeah, uh-huh. The other thing is Peter going to be kind of the liaison for this project with the library? Or has there been a delegate, somebody delegated for that?
Doesn't he live right near the new site? Like, almost directly across the street, as I recall.
Yeah.
Well, Mark
I
is
would-
currently the liaison with the library, but
For all things,
Mark's gonna be off the board in March, so
Right.
maybe. it
doesn't
makes-
mean that we don't have him be a liaison.
Well, if he was willing to do that, he still could, but.
I mean, obviously, communications, I think, are pretty good, you guys
Mm-hmm.
and Tom, but I would say use your current liaison if you're comfortable with that, and Tom,
And feel free to call. I
Okay,
don't check my emails as much as everyone does.
or text. He does, you just have to know what to put in the subject line,
put in
and
the
I can tell you a
subject
couple of words.
library.
He'll answer right away.
emergency.
Everything else,
The only other question I have is, how do we make sure that our request to establish a reserve fund is on the ballot for town meeting? What do we need to do?
well. I'm happy to add it to. Do you reference the Excel sheet, the ballot items on it?
Yeah, so the board first has to approve it, to say we're okay with adding a non-traditional article. If the board does not, then you need to petition 5% voters. And then Rosemary writes the warning, so I would send her the language, because it's her Word document, and then I'll put it in my March reorganizational folder, to make sure the board looks at it.
How do you ensure it?
Petition it. That would be my, I'm not suggesting that you do that, but if you want to make sure it gets on there, if you have a petition with 5% of the registered voters certified by Raspberry, then the exact language of the petition, so you have to be really careful about that, gets put on the warning whether we like it or not.
That's a guarantee.
Okay,
It also like puts it on the radar.
okay, well, we had gone through the preliminary steps last year, and somehow we dropped the ball at the wrong time, and it wasn't on the ballot. So I just want to make sure that
I
we're,
think during budget discussions, when we met with committees, I can't recall specifically your request at that time. I believe we form a reserve fund every year since I've been on the board.
Sometimes too.
Sometimes too. But
Okay.
most committees that come to the board ends up supporting it, and it gets on the warning.
okay,
Yeah.
So if you wouldn't mind maybe sending us an email,
okay.
we can put it on our topic discussions when we talk about the warning.
Yeah, I mean, I can't speak for the board, but I would have a hard time believing that it wouldn't garner the support of the board if it was a request of the library trustees. But again, to be absolutely certain, if you want to make sure it gets on there, petition it, and 5% of the voters isn't that many signatures.
Okay,
It would be what, 100?
They're
100? Yeah, 125.
okay,
Just put it at the library and it'll get filled up.
yeah,
But if you petition it, how it's written is how it goes on the
It's very
warning.
important.
correct?
Is very important. You want to really be on.
If you wanted a really well-written petition, there's a couple of people that are sitting over there
okay,
that could do a really good job.
All right.
I think Duncan wrote our last one.
There's draft language, I think he has access to the LCP. They have draft model language for reserve funds.
okay.
You could look at any of the town meetings and see how those ones were
See
worded.
those. Okay,
I think
I mean, I'm with
It's
Duncan. I think we'll support it, right?
you want a temperature check of the board? I'll go first. I support it.
I would support it.
Me
All
too.
right, there you go. So you
okay,
have
Multiple.
temperature from the board.
okay,
What would be important for me specifically is what you want the reserve fund for and how you would like to fund it. If it's a reserve fund for building maintenance, great. And you guys just want to take any unspent funds from your building maintenance line item to fund it, that's fine. We'll probably add bequests, donations and whatever, but
okay,
just saying reserve fund to me is, do you want it for book purchasing? That's fine too. I
Okay.
just don't know
Yeah, I
what
think,
the exact.
okay,
is one.
so we just need to specify what we would use.
If you give us a little
funds for.
clarity, that would be
Yeah.
helpful.
Holiday parties.
The
Okay.
voters will probably approve it.
Okay,
But it does become important how it's worded because the select board has the authority to spend those, but only for the purposes as that the voters approve it for. So,
okay,
so that becomes pretty important how it's worded.
Declared on how your money comes in and how it goes out. What it's used for, right? Those are the important parts.
okay. That's all. Thank you.
Thank you. Scott, the floor is yours.
How are you, Paul?
I haven't taken any heart medication, so if you're showing me a big budget number, let me know.
Well,
We may find an alternative.
that
It's
is
too
started
hard.
out. Got a couple of handouts here. Can you pass those around, please? This year has been a difficult year. The first 6 months of this year, which is the first half of our calendar year and the ending half of your fiscal year, we were down 143 calls. A little over
People
100.
are too healthy, is that what you're saying?
I don't know what was going on, but it was a shock as we'd stayed very consistent over the previous 20 some odd years.
Crazy.
So that's a little over $100,000 in income. And the third quarter, we were up a total of 18 calls, so we certainly haven't made up for that. One thing everybody always wonders is how we do with mutual aid. In 2023, we used mutual aid a total of 20 times. Through November 8th of this year, we have used mutual aid 11 times. In 2023, we supplied mutual aid to other services 67 times, and this year so far through November 8th, we've provided mutual aid 50 times. So we're doing a good job making sure we're covering our own calls. We can't cover 100% because nobody could afford to have the crews on hand to do all of that. So our initial budget increase for the 5 towns, when they put it together, was $212,987. I said, that's not gonna happen. So after many hours of discussion and work, the increase between the 5 towns is $35,574, in spite of the losses we've had. How are we doing that? We've been watching what's called the No Surprise Act in the legislature. They've been working on it for about 1.5 years. It's something that started nationally. And basically what it does is it really limits what we can bill, which will really help the taxpayers. But what we found out, what it does with private and Medicare, Medicaid, we just get X amount. There's nothing we can do about that. Private insurers, commercial insurers, they're using the No Surprise Act. It's supposed to be for the patient, but it's really a No Surprise Act for them, so they know what they're going to pay. But the research we've done nationally is that they negotiate a percentage of your bill. And so what we've done is we have raised our rates extraordinarily in anticipation of this. It's better to get 30% of a very large number instead of 30% of a lower, more reasonable number. And we're making that sure that doesn't hurt people on the other end. The other thing, what it looks like is people know once they meet their deductible, they won't be responsible for anything else. So we won't get any income. So we have to get as much we can from the insurance companies. So we've already taken care of that. And that's helped us out the last half of this year. We also have signed a contract with Copley Hospital. We were doing a lot of transports for uninsured people. Very difficult to get paid. We've signed a contract with Copley, and we had previously signed one with North Country Hospital, where the hospitals will pay at a much lower rate
for us to transport their uninsured patients to another hospital, back to nursing homes, et cetera. And it's beneficial to the hospitals because they're freeing up a bed or they're freeing up a room in the emergency department that they can't use until they get that patient out. So we have a very good working relationship with Copley. And they agreed to sign that contract and we've already got some income from that. So we're doing everything we can to find money elsewhere. We just applied and we've been told we have a very good chance of receiving a $500,000 grant for replacing the 10 Zolls in the ambulances. Zolls are the cardiac machines. And that they pay 100% for them. That will be, and of course we have to replace them all at the same time because as always, there's no requirements of the equipment we have to use. We are also right now looking at, we're fully staffed, which is great, but we're fully staffed and that we have our normal hours covered. If people take vacation or sick, we end up paying overtime, which as you know, gets very, very expensive. So we're doing a cost analysis of hiring an additional crew that would help us out when people are on vacation to reduce our overtime costs. But we're also discussing doing transfers with the University of Vermont, long distance transfers. They've called us many times this year. We haven't been able to provide that service. We don't have a crew, but those calls can bring in anywhere from $4,000 to $10,000 in income for one transport.
I have a couple questions for you. Now, is Vermont Ambulance still an entity in Vermont or are they strictly upstate New York?
From what I understand, they're still in Burlington as well. And
Because they were doing long distance transports.
right. But there's a lot of transports and there's not enough people around to do that.
And the other thing, I remember when I was in the legislature, that the EMS services were having trouble because insurance companies were reimbursing the patient to reimburse you. And we changed that so that insurance companies were sending the money directly to you. Is that
Yes,
still the case?
Yes. And we actually just brought in a new billing software that can research not only everybody's primary insurance, but we have access to their secondary insurance now too. So we're looking at every source of income. And we have to. And insurance companies are famous for saying no the first time.
Yeah.
And it's,
Well, the worst ones are auto insurance companies about paying. They seem to wait until before you go to work.
and with Medicare, Medicaid, you gotta dot your i's and cross your t's. If everything is not exactly correct, it will sit on somebody's desk forever. So you really have to know what you're doing. So we're looking at a cost analysis of that to see if it would be profitable. We don't want to do it just to employ people. We want to do it to make sure we can keep the cost to the taxpayers to a minimum. So on those handouts, you have what are all 5 towns appropriations for 2024, 2025. For those of you who are not familiar with how we break that down, we use the last fall US Census. We're using the 2020 US Census. We have to show the population of each of the communities, and then it's broken down per that. Unfortunately for you, I don't think a lot of your college students get counted in that. And then we have the proposed budgets we've given you in 23, 24, and for now for 2025. You will see that there's a difference in the appropriations we're asking for in 2025 on the budget seat, because that is for your fiscal year, July 1st to June 30th of 2026. So that is 431,933. What's shown on the top of the 2-page sheet is 414,148. Because that is half of the 393,685 for
And half of the 414.
and half of the 414.
Because you guys are calendar year.
We are
and
calendar
we're
year,
fiscal.
is your fiscal.
So I mean, the 8.5, almost 9% increase is mostly due to because of the loss in
The
call
loss,
volume.
and the main thing is we are budgeting a 5% pay increase. We have been hit by two local services in the past year have had a very difficult time finding employees. How do you get employees is you give them extraordinary amount of raises and starting wages. And so unfortunately, once again, we have to compete with that. But we are fully staffed. We've got great people.
Do you provide health insurance for your people?
We do partially.
That's a great increase right there.
Well, but it's also attracted a lot of good employees. We've had people transfer from the Hanover area, from southern Vermont. We have a firefighter with New York City, a paramedic that just moved in and is working for us.
Well, it would be ironic for a healthcare provider not to provide health insurance.
That it would,
You
but
know,
it is expensive.
It's crazy expensive.
Is anything happening with some of our neighbors who maintain their own systems?
Cambridge was having a difficult time last year. Most of our mutual aid calls went to Cambridge last year. They've done an excellent job this year. They were able to find a lot of employees out of Chittenden County because they reestablished what their wage compensation would be. Hardwick is having trouble for a while. They're doing much better. It seems we're getting more people interested, and we've been really marketing. It's a good job. I mean, people work 2 24-hour days a week. And people are now seeing that it is it's a lifetime career. One thing we have found difficult, and this is something that I'm gonna probably have to get Rosemary to answer. Right now, we bill you, your bill is due at the end of the month for that month. Our cash flow is difficult at the beginning of the month. So we would like to be able to start billing you so that we are getting our money the first of the month. The only difficulty that I see is that means in June, we would bill you for one bill would be due the end of June, and then the other bill would be due right in early July. So there'd be basically a double payment within a couple of weeks. And we're going to be asking all 5 towns if they can do that. So it's usually the person that writes checks that can tell us whether that's possible or not.
It's possible. We pay bills twice a month, so.
Okay.
The first week of the month and the third week of the month.
Okay, that would help us immensely because we're not in this to make a profit. We're just trying to provide a really good service, affordable. We have we're looking at $48.57 a year per capita. Last year, Warsaw and Cambridge are both in the 130 to 150 range. So we're well under that still.
Which just makes me wonder why this can't be a more regional service.
Well, what really helps us is in purchasing too. I mean, we do over 5,000 calls a year, but we have 4 stations now. We added the Troy station from Troy, Westfield. There's too many West. I think it's Westfield.
Yeah, so wouldn't that result in a cost savings to our adjoining municipalities' taxpayers?
It does for administrative. Because we're not adding administrative positions.
Right.
And so, yes, every time we've added a station twice after Johnson, 1 in Morgan and 1 in Troy. And so your percentage of the administrative budget went down. And then we also, last year, we signed a PO for 10 ambulances, 2 a year. we're able to hold the price on the boxes. We couldn't on the chassis, the manufacturers control those, but the boxes, we had got a fixed price over a 5-year period. So that certainly helps. And we've gone for transfers, we're using Ford Transits instead of the box trucks. For wear and tear and gas mileage, and you're talking about around 160,000 compared to 280,000. So we're doing everything we can, and we can continue. We'll continue to try to keep that cost down, but regionalization is the only way to go. Rutland Regional is the least expensive in the state, but I think they're doing almost 20,000 calls now. So call volume, call volume, call volume. Makes a huge difference.
Yeah.
If they're sitting there, it's expensive.
Are you saying that you could do the whole county from Johnson?
We could not do the whole county, but there are certainly parts that we could add. And the other thing too, though, I mean, a lot of towns want to have something in their town. You can put one crew there. And one ambulance and not have to have that second. These towns don't need 2 or 3 ambulances when they only have one out all the time.
They're their own mutual aid at that point.
Yeah.
That's where, in the Newport area, we've received mutual aid 11 times in Johnson. Between our 3 stations in Newport, we cover J Peak to Lowell, to Derby, Derby line, out to Island Pond, Ferdinand, Averill. We received mutual aid 1 time so far this year. We're able to use people from our own stations. So that keeps the income with us instead of somebody else.
So if we all go home tonight and have a stroke, it'll be good for business.
It certainly is.
I'll only go so far.
I don't know if we can make those jokes.
No, we can't. We're getting old. We're getting old.
I told Scott to be easy on my heart, but I do think you presented a
Well,
pretty realistic
I
budget.
wouldn't be alive if it wasn't for these guys in Johnson. Very proud of what they've done.
Great.
Further questions from the board?
I'm glad you're here.
Thank you. And of course, this is all, I'll be back after town meeting because the voters are the ones that approve this budget.
Right, you'll be back for the 1 signature copy, right?
Yes, yep, that's what our accountants insist on. But we're hoping, and in our budget, we assumed we're gonna, I think we assumed that we'll get 50% of those lost calls back next year. We didn't quite dare go back to what they've been over the years. That first budget, they said all our calls will be flat. I said, no, it's not. It's a 1-year thing, hopefully.
Well, thank you, Scott.
Good to see everybody.
Have a good
Thank
one.
Hopefully you will not need our services.
Hopefully private equity won't buy you up.
Best money to spend with that, with never using, right?
Well, in our contract, if something happens to Newport Ambulance Service, your 5 towns have all the assets.
We own the lion's share
There
Yes,
you go.
the buildings paid.
of everything.
We do have the liabilities to go with them, but the assets are worth a lot more.
At the moment.
Thank you very much, Scott.
Thank you.
Have a good one. Tom, you got a number to carry for the budget now? So you move on to that. Next item is political signs. Not sure if you guys received the email
It's in the back of the packet.
from the resident today, but it's not in the back of my packet. It might be in the- Just before, it's before Cargill.
I thought, it was- you know, reading through that. How much is town property is she actually talking about? Route 15 is not town property.
It's a, you know, right away. State right away is all in conjunction between the town and the state. So
Well, in this case, it would be the village property.
state law is the town and the state.
So that be village.
I think it's because it was their 511 permit that established the changes. But I did reach out to AOT, and it's pretty clear. Um, The town owns a cemetery, and I think when I read Jackie's request, I don't think it matters what your answer is, whether you say yes to signs, no to signs. I think all she wants is clarity. Where is the car gonna park with the advertisements? Where are the signs gonna be allowed? Where aren't they gonna be allowed? And it doesn't matter as long as it's the same every year, so there's no surprises and hiccups.
What is the state's current policy on signs within the highway right away?
I don't know. Mike and I talked about this. We didn't discuss
There's
that.
like 6 different things on the state
Yeah.
website.
Yeah.
As municipalities may adopt ordinances, regulations, or policies that either prohibit placement of temporary political campaign signs or that allow placement for a short duration. It goes on and on. So the policy can be short or sweet. We suggest the board consider the following: a clear statement of where on public property signs will be allowed, or that no signs will be allowed on public property. If it is the latter, you can stop here. So it doesn't have to be very big and long, drawn out. It's something I think we should work on before the next time we have an election. I don't think there's anything we have to work on tonight.
Well, I think tonight's temperature check of the board, do we want a policy or do we want to just?
I think the policy is good and clear. And if it's adopted by the board, then everybody knows about it.
You agree with that?
Yep.
Peter?
Mhm.
Duncan?
Sure, why not?
Mark, you're last.
State picked up a lot of my signs over the years.
Those sons of guns.
Yeah, I have most of my signs are stolen this year. So yeah, we can do a policy, because the other option is no, nothing.
And your policy could be done.
Which
Yeah,
is,
and your
yeah,
policy
which is
could
pretty
be no,
easy.
nothing.
Yeah.
But I'm just saying, basically, we're deciding we're gonna look for nuance versus.
So we're really talking about, well, this building is jointly owned, so I don't think we can institute a policy for a jointly owned building. What's that?
For this site, we have one.
That you can't have political signs?
No signs at all. except
No
for
signs at
town-
all.
Town or village.
And that's town, that was, okay. Yeah, I remember that. You mentioned it. So really, we're talking about Whiting Hill Cemetery?
Right.
Is that,
Well, we'd be talking about town property. I think Whiting Hill Cemetery is obviously a high traffic, high visibility area, but what about Evergreen Ledge? It's a pretty good spot, all things considered, right? Beard, well, the Beard Recreational Park is another town property. Do we want political signs out at the Arboretum? The tree ward would probably not be very impressed, but I think the conversation's town property. Maybe if we want to do it by a specific property, that's fine, it's up to the board.
It's just clear, this is town property.
Yeah.
And who's gonna prepare the policy? And what are the guiding documents of it?
I'll take a stab at it.
Tom and I had talked about the policy.
You'll take a stab at it. So what would the board generally like to see? I have no problem with Tom preparing the policy.
Yeah, I mean, we don't need to reinvent this wheel. There's gotta be a gazillion of them out there.
Mike found statute online that like lays out what you can and can't do pretty clean, and it's just the board making the decision where to do it, where not to do it. And I love it because it means that you're not pinning neighbor against neighbor about who took the signs. That's nice, is that it's like, if you put your signs where they're not supposed to be, the town took it. You don't have to worry about the guy next door taking, you know,
That's,
So where do we want them to be and not want them to be?
just find a policy for us, I think. I mean, we can't say anything but except town land, right? That's all we have heard.
Yeah,
Right.
Town owned land, and
I guess because we own a portion of this, it could qualify. Maybe.
Rosemary has authority as a presiding officer of up to 75 feet, is it, or 100 feet or something?
Can't walk the entrance.
But you can make a policy. You're the voting official. You can say, you can make a policy that they could only, if you had people standing in the parking lot, you could relegate them to 4 parking places or something to stand, you know, or anything like that.
So currently, there is no regulation of distance from the polling place?
Evidently not.
They've not blocked the entrance.
there used to
And
be
it
at
can't
one
be
time, I
inside.
remember there used to be a distance, but.
So technically, you could have a gauntlet of people standing right by the sidewalk
Uh-huh.
with a political sign in there.
Yeah.
If they're not blocking the sidewalk.
I remember Henry Manchester used to have his grandkids there. Please vote for my grandfather.
No different than you having your folksy truck parked out here
No.
with your big sign on there, vote for Mark, you know, painted in red paint
I
or
like
something.
it, except it wasn't right like bowls, but.
No, but you had it right, you took a parking place up.
Did I do that really?
You parked your rig the night before.
That's okay.
Well, I have, if we're gonna do a plan, I got a fundamental question. Should the plan say they can be allowed in specific places and not in others? They can't be allowed anywhere, or they can be allowed everywhere? I mean,
Right.
Do we have a sense of what we wanna do?
They should be a specific area for people to stand.
Well, and the thing is we can't have a plan for this building anyways, because it's a joint owned building. It's not town property.
Right, but Rosemary said no political signs on this property. correct?
Right.
Right.
So Rosemary has,
She didn't
There's no
say,
signs at all, except for town and village business.
But there is a difference between planting a sign in the ground or standing and holding a sign.
For the,
or one
for
of,
election day, no signs can be unattended. So somebody has to buy the sign.
what a sticky wicket. To answer your question, I think that was the question I was getting at. What are the guiding parameters?
Well, it's nothing we need to beat a dead horse over tonight. We got plenty of other things to take care of.
I am not gonna sit here and ask anybody to write a policy that the board isn't at least conceptually in agreement of the idea. And Tom, go write a policy for political signs, thanks.
I'm gonna steal it from
What-
Hartford, Vermont, send it.
Well, what do we want? Do we not want them on town property? That's fine if that's the board's answer.
If we don't want it on town property, I don't think we need a policy. We just say tonight, no town,
Well,
no
our-
signs
our
anywhere.
policy
No,
could
but you
be
have to have a
incentive.
policy. It says in here that you have to have something. In other words, you may adopt an ordinance, regulation, or policies that either prohibit or allows. I mean, it's pretty clear from the Secretary of State's office.
Yeah, and I will just say that if it's a policy, that's good for a year. Because the next board that comes along can decide to follow that policy or not.
Well, you can adopt an ordinance.
Yeah, I don't want.
Policies are easier to change than ordinances, we know that.
I don't want to.
So-
It's a tempest in a teacup.
And an ordinance takes longer to approve, and yada, yada, yada.
You understand historically or traditionally, the location at the cemetery is where signs have collected?
Not all the time. They're there sometimes they're not.
But there's no place else of town property that's been utilized?
And that, not that I know of, but it's also an intersection between Route 15 and Route 101. Yeah, so it's like a really, if you drive around, you see signs at intersections everywhere.
Yeah.
Yeah, I mean, so if we make a policy just for Whiting Hill Cemetery, specifically, it's pretty easy to walk the sign across the road and plant it on the Historic Society's lawn. And that is town property, not the Historic Society. So it would be fine. That's why I'm saying we're talking about town property,
Town property.
in my mind. I mean, they could go down and put them on Legion Field. Right? What about the swimming hole, Judavine, or not?
So
Beards or Land's End, Journey's End.
Journey's End, there you go.
the policy could be nowhere except the cemetery location.
Why would we have a motion to have them removed if we're going to allow them there in the policy?
I bring a
Seems a little-
draft to the board and you guys can. Email it.
That's fine.
If that's what you want, but I don't want you to bring a draft to the board and the board to have contradictory thoughts and then you be feeling at odds with the board when there's no inherent.
Let's just start the whole thing. I don't think we should have any political signs on town property.
There you go. There's some direction. Mike.
There's a statement right there.
How's the rest of the board feel? At least that's direction.
I'm gonna be the contrarian. I think they should be allowed everywhere.
That's not very helpful. You guys go.
I didn't say it would
If
be
you guys
helpful.
each support one of them, we could tie break it.
Everybody was for no signs on town property when we first discussed this.
Yep.
I was lukewarm on it.
Yeah.
Well,
So now you're jumping ship.
I was,
Go for it, Peter.
in that discussion that we had, I was led to believe that there was a policy. And that's why I voted the way I did, that we should follow the policy.
Nothing was mentioned about any policy.
No, I don't remember that. I remember a comment about the town should remain neutral,
Yeah,
and I still believe in that. We had, previous board had a lot of conversations about other forms of display and wanted to remain neutral. I still believe in that.
Like I said, it wouldn't take long for me to email the listserv and ask for examples from other towns. Would that be helpful for you to see other towns' examples, both for or against? And then you have a framework to start with, so we're not, it's a concept, say, that actually looks okay, maybe that's too hard. But at least we're talking about something rather than the whole, we're moving it along anyways.
And find the definition of what a political sign is. Is it a candidate? Is it an amendment? What is it? I generally,
Is it an organization that
Right.
supports things politically?
right, I think,
no
I think I
signs,
fall into the Duncan camp.
no signs on town.
You want everything,
I'm a believer in the First Amendment. Have them all.
even if
It really is not a person.
maybe it was an offensive thing, you're supportive of it.
Well, you define offensive, and we
It's
will
di-
spend a lot of time.
It's different things for different people, certainly.
Right.
Well, I think the idea of political, determining what a political sign is, makes that discussion somewhat.
You're all for it when it was first mentioned. You said, I agree, there shouldn't be any signs on town property. Right.
We all know that people can change their minds,
I
right?
know, I know, but still, everybody was so adamant, oh yeah, that's a good idea. No,
I mean,
no
we're
signs
talking
on
about-
town property.
What, 300 square feet around Whiting Hill?
Oh, wow, we're not.
We're talking about all town property.
And I guess my question would be, how much of an issue or problem has it been in the past that it really needs to be addressed? I said before, I think it's a tempest in a teapot, but,
As long as it's clear to everybody what we're saying.
We don't know what we're saying.
I know. So we need to make it clear somehow.
I think we're looking for what your feelings are. Specifically, Peter,
Yeah,
generalized.
The simple thing is no signs on town property.
Okay,
And that's any kind of sign.
guess we have 2 for, 2 against, don't we?
Looks like you're gonna have to make a decision.
that would be.
Oh, my
beautification
goodness.
Committee signs, okay, any signs?
Could you prepare,
I'm fine either way.
Okay, yeah.
could you prepare a? Are you rescinding yourself?
No, Mark's asking, what about, beautification committee signs? I'm fine with those. So we're back to political
Yeah,
signs.
that's a town committee, it's a little different.
Yeah.
What about yard sales?
What about no unsanctioned signs?
Who sanctions it?
I will.
Select board. At the town of Danville, if you're gonna put signs on the green, you have to go to the select board and say, can I put up a tag sale sign? And they say, yes, for this number of days. Every sign that goes out.
My God, that must be annoying. I don't
It was the
want
first
that.
time I
I don't want that power.
I think you can, my guess is from the sentiments of the board, you could prepare a draft policy in the form of no political signs on town property.
Yeah.
That answer your question?
Does,
I don't even have half a dog in this fight.
Where is he?
You have a
Where is
stinky dog on my feed. That's what you have.
He likes it.
All right, next item is the interlocal kennel agreement. Tom has made some changes to it to update with the town of Johnson, as well as clarify that Johnson is only going to pay for Johnson dog costs. What are the board's wishes?
I have a question.
Certainly.
Is there anybody else that is party to this interlocal agreement? Is it just between us and Hyde Park?
I have asked and I have not been provided. Part of the things I asked for were an agreement similar to the interlocal. And Hyde Park did not choose to go that route, and so they chose to go with a sublease model, which is what we see here. And so I don't know which other towns are part of it or not.
Because when I read this, I don't know that it meets the definition of an interlocal agreement. It seems to me to be more of a lease agreement, where, an agreement with Hyde Park to have 2 kennel spots in their lease.
In their allotment.
Yeah. So I guess I'm okay with the agreement. I just don't, I'm not sure we should really call it an interlocal agreement, because most interlocal agreements, well, it's a different thing, but our interlocal agreement for Justin requires the consent of all of the parties
For
to
anything
make
to
any
change.
changes.
And this is very clear that it's Hyde Park is agreeable to subleasing kennel space to Johnson. So you are correct. It's very clear sublease.
Yeah.
And I think the direction to move forward is, do you want me to go to the attorney and say, hey, does this mean interlocal? Or does this, maybe we just call it a subcontractor and send them
Did they have this reviewed by an attorney?
I went and met with, this is what's going, they did send an email, they didn't send me who who, but they said, they did say that this is what's going out to all the other interested towns.
I just looked up a definition. And it says they permit local government units to make the most efficient use of powers by enabling them to cooperate and contract with other local governmental units. Wait a minute. And there was one or more. I mean, two or more. Somewhere. I lost it.
I guess it's in the nitty gritty, but can we just call it a lease agreement in the title?
I don't care. I'm okay. You know, I think basically everybody should just be aware of the fact that we're basically being kind of guaranteed 2 spaces and maybe more if we need it. Depending on whether they've got them available or not.
Right.
For $5,000 plus $25 a day for boarding, which, you know, I'm okay with the $25 a day. It's not that much different.
I mean, we had talked in the past about maybe just going direct to the kennel service. Were those conversations had, or did we?
I didn't have any luck getting a hold of Vermont County. They never got back to me with the kennel, and I did get a hold of a local option that wasn't feasible. And so this is where we are today. This is the only viable option we have.
When they've leased the space from Memorial, what used to be Memorial Kennels. So basically, they're controlling, what is it, 14 spaces or something like that?
Yeah, so they pay the whole bill, and then we're paying Hyde Park. We're not, we don't pay the kennel at all.
Right.
And I think if we were, I mean, they didn't call me back anyways, but if they did, going directly to that kennel facility might be undermining, you know, this.
Yeah, I mean, when we talked about it in the past, I think I said we weren't trying to undercut Hyde Park, and maybe we could go direct to the kennel, but Hyde Park could be relieved of the cost, but it would just be a direct contact instead of a.
Does anybody have heartburn with the annual fee of $5,000? The $25 a day for an impounded animal is a deal. But the 5,000 is hard.
If it makes you feel any
We're
better,
probably
it's
gonna
only
have to bite the bullet.
$4,999.92.
We're probably just gonna have to bite the bullet.
Well, we need something.
It gives me heartburn, but yes, I think I can get my arms around it.
They were being charged 30,000 for offer.
30,000?
Yeah, they're hoping to get the air costs down to around $5,000 by, you know, I mean, we get 2 spots, so that must mean that 7 other communities are getting 2 spots.
Or,
6 other
or
communities.
8 or 9, and they're playing the numbers game.
Or whatever, I don't know, yeah.
Oh, whatever, we're over a barrel here, we need something.
Yeah, that's exactly it.
I
Why don't we just go ahead and do it?
They had a call this weekend on 100C for a dog, and since we don't have a place, he's spending significantly longer trying to find homes, he's like negotiating on the street rather than just picking up the dog.
Well, that doesn't work either. We need a kennel.
What are the board's wishes?
So move.
Second.
All right, motion and a second. Your motion, just for clarity, for Donna's purposes, is to approve the interlocal kennel agreement, authorizing who to sign it.
The chair.
It's a signature copy.
And you have to,
I would agree with that.
okay. Any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? Tom, can you build this expense into draft budget?
Thank you, Karen.
Thank you. Select Board University Liaison. Believe you had a little write-up in the packet about this.
That's why I never really.
I think it's choice of Mark.
I agree.
I'm glad to.
Are you making that a motion? sir?
Yes.
Second,
Well done, Mr. Chair. Take the vote, let's move on.
There's a motion and a second. Any further discussion? How is the liaison gonna be keeping us surprised?
Oh, you can hardly wait.
I mean,
We're gonna end up owning the college.
we end up being apprised of the library in our meetings.
we didn't give you any authority, we just said you could be the liaison.
Well, I mean,
If you can negotiate a real good deal, then we'll own all that property up there. We'll make the industrial park up there.
Senior housing.
How's it? But
How would you
Yeah.
like,
Bring a couple
as
thousand
things play out,
I mean, the way this is worded, it sounds like there's potentially some big decisions coming along.
And you'll be right there to
We
hear
need
it.
to know.
how would you like to be informed? Would you like?
You're
me to
asking
get-
me, I'm asking how the board's gonna get information. Does the rest of the board not care? I can just have phone conversations with Mark if you guys don't
You
care.
know,
I think he should bring anything that's significant, we should.
I'll
Bring
try
to
and
the
get
board.
it, I'll get it on the agenda,
Okay.
and I'll get it emailed out to you beforehand.
I love it.
I'll keep you.
Standing item, college relations.
Only if it's
Mark will
under
get a
report.
sense of that and he'll let us know.
As needed.
As needed.
All those in favor with the motion signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed,
And Mark, are you gonna continue
ayes
this
have
after
it.
you get off the board?
I think so.
how's the energy coordinator portion playing out?
It's really low right now.
By the
You
way,
know, there's many a split between a couple of them. He might not actually get off the board.
you know,
Never know.
we need a new town service officer, don't we?
Town service office?
Yes,
Yeah, we do.
we're looking at the new town service officer over there.
Does the board want to talk about the break-in at the skate park? Tom had an update. If we have questions, it's there. If not, we're gonna keep moving.
Yes, because it said they took care of it.
Keep moving.
All right. MERP acceptance and signature authority.
What did we actually get approved for?
It's in the packet.
21,000 for.
We got
Yeah, not projects. actual projects.
a door sweeps at the garage, attic insulation at the garage, and a smart thermostat at the garage.
Wow.
Was that $21,000 for those
It's actually-
things? alone?
It's all the other properties too, so, Tori had paid, we met a couple times, and it was all the projects that paid themselves back.
So why'd you go to
21,000.
180,000?
21,628.20.
Yeah, I was. just
And as
trying
far
to
as I
get that
know-
For door sweeps and a thermostat,
As far as I know, the attachment A for scope of work says Johnson Town Garage updates include. And there's only those three listed. So if it's a lot more, maybe we get clarity on that for
Yeah.
sure.
Well, I can't believe it just goes 300.
It's the same.
Yeah, but there's 76 feet of door sweeps.
Tori came,
Come on, Michael.
Tori came to a meeting, when the application went in, I don't know if you remember, and she laid out all the projects ahead of us, and nothing's changed, it's just we applied, the board said, go ahead and apply for that, and then the state said, yes, you get all that.
So it's just the attachment is wrong for scope of work.
I'm guessing it's just the attachment Tori sent me to put on the agenda, probably did not have all the papers. I guess.
I move to approve, to accept the grant and to authorize the board chair or town administrator to sign any necessary documents.
Second.
There's a motion on the floor. There's a second. Is there any further discussion? All of those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, and the ayes have it.
It's gonna be an intelligent thermostat, it's gonna track the town crew.
Yeah, didn't it say learning?
Yeah.
That was
Learn.
3 feet.
Yeah.
Next item is the road erosion inventory grant approval to apply and signature delegation.
Move to authorize Tom to apply and to, same motion, have either Tom or the board chair authorized to sign.
Second.
understanding that there's a town match. All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed? And the ayes have it.
Are you excited about this, Jason?
That's really not how it read.
Well, one of those things is we can use town forces to help meet our match. Right?
Erosion inventory.
Oh,
grant.
yeah, erosion.
Yeah, no, that's what I was thinking about. Well, because it sounds like we may be fooling around on some class 4 roads.
Well, I think once we push back, like, Jason's killing it with the class 3s. and
No,
2s.
I know.
So eventually, we're working on the 4s now too, technically, but I wasn't, I'm sorry, I thought
Yeah,
I
that's-
was in door sweeps, I was, that's what I'm.
No, I
We
was,
can start using- we're using
Why aren't you
grant funds
excited about
for
door
those
sweeps?
4s. That's how cool, that's how far ahead it is.
no, I just think, I spend a lot of time out near a couple class 4 roads. It seems like Cotting Hollow is growing. I mean, there are more people living out there, moving out there than anywhere else in town, as far as I can see.
This is the thing that Alex told me about. Yeah. I think it's a great thing, actually, yeah.
Good.
You changed your mind.
Well, I was looking at this.
He was looking at door sweeps, I'm thinking
I was
about,
looking at it, I was like,
thinking about getting, what would that entail on class 4? Maybe some culverts or some ditching or not a lot, because it's not a big grant.
Increasing the width, it'd be.
Ditching.
The class 4s for what we need to do, for. To bring them up to a standard type thing would be to make sure there's no erosion more than a foot,
Yeah, which on the mine road, there's a couple places that
Yeah.
are pretty gully like.
and culverts that are upsized that can take the storm thing, so the grant will go farther money wise when they open it up to it, because of scope of work won't be, it doesn't have to be super wide, it doesn't have, be a 20-foot culvert instead of a 40-foot culvert.
Which will be very useful for us in our discussions about whether or not to reclassify some of the class 4 roads to legal trails.
And I don't know if you guys have been paying attention to Vermont Public Radio.
Yeah.
That's right, that Tunbridge lawsuit is gonna be really interesting. We might not want to turn any of our class 4s into legal trails if we lose them, so that's gonna be.
Have you followed that, Duncan?
I have. I find it very hard to believe that the Supreme Court's gonna accept the landowner's premise on that, but who knows? We can't make our decisions based on what the Supreme Court may or may not do at some point in the future.
Oh, I agree. And I'm with you on the first thought too. I can't believe they're gonna take class 4s away from.
But who knows? You never know.
All right. Now on to some really exciting stuff. Let's talk about salt. So
I move we accept the salt bid as submitted, understanding that we are not eligible for the state.
as submitted, there was 2 submissions.
Cargill and Compass.
The compass, the compass quote,
Okay,
excuse me.
there's a motion on the floor. Is there a second?
No.
This was,
Read what it says here. It's not a killing affair tonight. We're gonna wait a couple of weeks.
is there a second?
I thought the waiting was to hear from the state.
Well, I did a little research on that, and it appears as if we can't get that deal, but it doesn't mean that there's not maybe some other avenues that I can check into. There's no killing affair.
Are you
Why don't we
asking
just
the
put
board
on?
for authorization to look into the salt contract?
Yeah, why not?
If there's not gonna be a second, the motion's gonna die.
Well, I wanna hear more about what you're thinking around the motion, Duncan.
Well, my thinking around the motion was we can't get the state contract, so we should accept the compass quote. But if Mike seems to think he can get us a better deal somehow, then I'm fine with authorizing him to investigate that.
Jason has a comment.
Yeah. So the Compass Salt Company produces the best salt, the most purest salt. It's proven that way. Hyde Park is using it for their brine making. A lot of towns have switched over to it because it's pure white. It's more salt, less additive. Ferret salt's gray. And you got southern gray in it. And when
Hyde Park used a brine machine, there was a lot of leftover sediment that's not salt. So we get a cheaper rate for that stuff, but you're not getting the salt that Compass has. My recommendation, track record of saving this town money in the last 3.5 years, is to go with Compass.
Well, it doesn't mean that I wouldn't go with Compass. I would just check around and see what other people are getting for deals that I know. And maybe they're getting a better deal. I'm trying to get it ourselves.
For clarity, the motion's dead. We're gonna need to do something else.
Well, we got 2 weeks. to-
Make another motion in a second, that's fine. Is there another motion on the floor?
I'll make a motion, we go with Compass.
That's the motion that Duncan made.
Oh, I thought we had no motion on the floor.
Well,
We-
because
we
you
did,
didn't.
but-
One motion, he's saying it's died because of lack of a second.
Because of lack of a second.
Yours died.
Yes.
Oh, then I'll second it.
Can we bring a motion back from the dead? Donna,
Well,
has this
or
happened?
Duncan- Duncan, you
Rosemary,
could
has this
second-
happened before?
You could second Peter's motion.
Well, you generally, you can't make a motion. If a motion died for lack of
Yeah,
a second, you
you're gonna-
really can't bring the same motion back up again.
I mean, his motion was to go with Compass.
And he also said he could second yours.
Yeah,
Once he didn't understand. I mean, that's not a lack of.
There's no killing affair, 2 more weeks, correct? Give
Are you
me a
concerned
chance to check.
Will it bother you if we wait 2 more weeks? Will Compass get irritated with us?
I don't think so.
Okay,
Could they change
They could
the
change
quoted
prices.
price?
They could.
cause they put a timeline
It
on
was
their
good
price.
for 30 days, so we could have gotten into that.
I mean, it was good for 5 days
5 days, oh.
When they
partially
issued it.
30 days.
when they issued it on October
But you
20th.
said on here that you got 2 more weeks.
That was to check with the state contract, wasn't it?
Yeah.
Generalized comment, even though we're not in further discussion. Whoever the board selects, and you haven't gone over in the past, but if we actually fulfilled the full orders, we would be over budget considerably. But you've
We
all,
don't.
I know, you've always been conscious of it, so I just. Not like staying up late at night thinking about it, it's just. How much tonnage do we really go through in a typical year?
Every year it's been getting better, the more brine we use. This year we plan on doing more brine. So,
Cause you ordered what,
You know, Brian.
380 tons last year?
No, we don't. And then, what was
We
your-
ordered like 380 tons or so last year.
yeah, we ordered what the, little under what the contract had, just to fill up the, to lost some of the salt with the. Made it work, but the salt content wasn't that. Well,
The RFP was for amount to reserve, so that knowing that we could buy in the spring. Reserve, I said 400 to 500 tons, knowing last year we bought 400, this way in case in. Spend it all at the stores, so you could buy, there would be a full 500 reserve.
He's not agreeing with you.
I'm not agreeing with the fact that only because, Tom, we talked about it, Tom put in that, but I don't foresee us going over it. 'Cause it's all that we have down there right now for the storage. And with the brine, it's gonna come in less than we were even last year. For usage. The way that we adapted the brine thing over the last few years and what we learned and what the other towns have learned, like Cambridge switched over to it now. So, it's working better than we were asking with the double tanks and the more spray bar, it's working better.
Are you making your own brine or?
We get it from Hyde Park.
So we can't bring back the same motion. If I make a slightly different motion,
Go for it.
who would typically sign this?
Or Tom or Jason, or anybody.
Okay. So I will make a motion that we accept the Compass bid with Evan authorized to sign.
Second,
It's motion and a second. Is there any further discussion? All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Hey,
All those opposed.
Nay.
Duncan, how do you vote?
Aye.
Mike,
Nay.
Mark,
Aye.
Peter,
aye.
the ayes have it.
Thank you.
Do you have one of these in here?
All the things you can sign.
You know, we talked about that several times, that every town, the county got together and got a contract with the bulk. I still think we could get it cheap.
You're absolutely right.
These, in all seriousness, I don't know who the best person, but these two have talked about it a lot and I agree with it. Is there any training or something that a lot of the foremans go to that you could maybe float that idea to the other town?
Well, the training, we went to this fall in October, every year we go up to the Hyde Park Barrage and the state comes in with all the brine talk and salt talk and reps are there. Everybody leans towards Compass and they all buy the certain tonnage. No one ever buys it like a root ball that I know.
Well, the state's buying it from Compass at
$78.
$20 cheaper a ton,
Lamoille County Planning Commission,
delivered to Morrisville.
Transportation Advisory Committee has talked about doing bulk purchasing for years. And what it finally comes down to is individual towns don't want to do it because it's a, you know, they might lose their possibility of local control.
And then where do you walk in? So do you base it on 400 ton and we have a mild winter and you only use 400 ton? So then your contract is buy 400 ton? Or- So far, every year we've saved, we've come in way less.
Yeah, I'm not saying you guys aren't doing a great job at saving money. I'm saying if you came to me and said we can buy the same salt for $20 less a ton, I would say awesome.
I agree.
So, I mean, we're buying it this way. If we reserve 500 ton and Hyde Park reserve 500 ton and Morrisville reserve 1,000 ton, and I'm just throwing numbers at things I have no clue what to use. And Cambridge reserved
Say 500 ton.
600 ton, they have more road.
Salt, 3 ton.
Your truck full.
3 ton. We go out 3-4 times on 3 ton. So it's,
But
Take forever to haul.
and there's 400, almost 400 tons sitting in our shed down there.
why would, we wouldn't have to haul it? We just have reserves with delivery locations.
I think it makes a lot of sense that we examine a countywide buying a solution.
It may not be feasible, it's just if we can get the same product for cheaper, the board's
If
interested.
we got the state contract, we'd save between $8,000 and $10,000.
And it's only, we only haven't been able to get the state contract for a full 2 years. So I think we really should be putting pressure on our state office of
Yeah.
purchasing and contracting. If they're doing all the work, and we used to be able to buy it that, our town should come together to say, hey, OPC, when you do this contract next year, you need to include us too.
They used to get the state contract when, before I was.
Well, we should talk to Senator Westman. He sat on that transportation committee, still does it probably, and that's a gazillion years.
We've thrown this idea out about
8,000
multiple
times.
things, right?
I'm
If-
your
if we could-
LCPC rep. I'll certainly bring it up again at LCPC level to see. if
I
they
think-
would-
I think the board would love it. We threw out the idea about asphalt one year. If, you know, if you got a larger purchase, I don't know if you get it any.
One of the issues with the state contract, they can deliver to a set number of garages. If we all do it, it's gonna be 10 municipal garages in Lamoille County. You know, that's more than the entire state probably has for, you know.
The
their
state
depots.
has 2 in Lamoille County alone.
Well, I'm not aware of the state. What, 2 in Lamoille County versus 10 in Lamoille County? There's a difference, so they've got transportation. What I'm trying to say is we're probably not gonna get the state contract price per ton, because they've got to figure their transportation.
Well, even if we got it $10 a ton cheaper, it would still help us out.
Absolutely, I totally agree, totally agree.
All right, I think we beat that one.
So too.
Old business, anybody have anything under old business?
Just have the conservation.
That's after,
That's after. Okay.
and an local kennel can come off. Okay. Como Lot Conservation Commission, what you got, Peter?
Okay, so, we noticed, that there was some activity up in the corner of the Gomo Forest that we think is actually part of the Gomo Forest, but we're not sure.
Logging activity or?
Is some clearing,
Council's logging.
and, you know, minor clearing, erection of some posts like for a gate, and opening up what looks like maybe an old logging road, and it's right in a corner. So we ended up looking for what we have for survey maps for the town. I don't think that the activity up there is a really big issue. But what we discovered was that we do not have a complete survey of 140 acres of town property. We have a survey that shows that the Gomo Forest goes all the way to Waterville, which it doesn't. We have another survey that shows Gomo Forest without 50% of its acreage. And I think there's a third one that has some other variation. But we're just feeling like
These are surveys of other people's lots?
they're no, they're not. They're surveys that were done at various stages for the Gomo Forest. And I think there was an addition to the forest at some point, because there's another section that shows up on a subsequent map that didn't show up on an earlier map. Anyway, it's all, we don't really have any accurate rendition of what we own.
Those maps are not actually surveys,
They were
like
used
like a forester did one that showed some of the forest lands.
One of them was Bob Fry, so I think it was a survey.
There were surveys in the vault that we found.
Yeah, actual surveys. Yeah, but they're not, none of them are accurately portraying the whole piece.
The section is on the survey, but it's a section that's unsurveyed. So like they were looking at this 10-acre lot and then 2 lots over, marked on the survey, but no meets and bounds. So you get an idea where the right of way goes, which is the part in question, right? Where the town classical road is. And then there's also, to complicate matters more, there's a description of a easement from one property owner to another property owner that appears to be in the complete wrong direction and on the complete opposite side of the road than it should be. Which I think that easement is actually the nature of the problem. It's because it's defining an easement across land that somebody doesn't actually own. Is that pretty well?
Yeah, pretty much.
But there is a survey of that lot?
No, it's surveyed like 2 lots over. So a survey that shows the area, so you have an understanding of what the intent was. But if that area wasn't actually surveyed, it was the surveyor was doing this, and then it had books and pages of neighboring lots, but those neighboring lots aren't surveyed.
Am I wrong in thinking that the state owns behind the Gomo lot? Which
oh,
side was?
This is on the southeast portion of the Gomo lot.
Oh,
That's as you head up Valley Hollow where you first enter the Gomo lot.
from Johnson.
Yeah.
So I wanted to just bring it to the board's attention. We don't need to spend a lot of time on it tonight if we can come back to it another time. But I just wanted to get it out there.
That is interesting and puzzling.
If
Sounds
there's
like more research than actual survey.
More what?
Research than survey.
if there's
I think there might be a legal issue, but a survey would define that.
But if somebody's got a survey that says the easement is in a certain direction and
It's not surveyed, it's just like there was a property transfer of 0.74 acres in early 2024, January 2024.
20 of this year.
Yeah, the neighbor who's up here, so like class 4 road, corner of a property, 0.74 acres. The neighbor up here on the northeast side of the class 4 road gave these people an easement to cross their land when they're kitty cornered to each other. So it feels like there might be an easement that's not valid, and it's just between people. There's no survey that would encompass it. There's no reference to the survey that should say this is where this is from. And you're only required to report a survey if it's referenced in the deed. So this subdivision is at 0.74 acres, which is cut off by the class 4 road. And so the Gomo lies here, right? These people's lies here, connected only by this 90-degree. And there really should be a boundary line agreement or a survey of where the Gome meet this people in this 0.74 acre lot and new people.
So what's it look like if you look at the parcel maps?
It's pretty
Oh.
similar.
Yeah. Parcel map didn't even shed less light.
There's no, because the 0.74 acre wasn't subdivided yet. So you have to use the description in the deed of the class 4 road to define that triangle.
So what's the
And
ask?
given,
I was just gonna say I'm confused on the ask right now, but you
So-
eloquently put that.
I guess what we're feeling is that the whole lot is a bit of an unknown, and the town should know precisely what it owns. And, right now we have this question down here, but there's every possibility that we're gonna run into another question somewhere else.
So to sum it up, the Conservation Commission wants the town to pay for a survey of the entire lot.
Excellent.
I think that's the ask.
That sounds like what I was.
Seems very
assuming it
roundabout.
was.
Well put. Thank you.
We'd sort of need to know what that amount of money is.
Yes,
You're not gonna just approve it?
yes. So,
Um,
and I have no idea what a survey costs. So that's why I'm saying, we don't have to do anything.
20
tonight.
grand?
Probably 20 grand to survey that lot.
Something.
I'll tell you, I just had a survey done. These guys with satellite positioning stuff, man, they just surveyed off a lot in an hour.
Where are you subdividing?
In Bakersfield. Not subdividing, that holding out of conservation. But it was $2,500.
And they put corner pins in?
Everything.
No kidding.
They set a satellite transponder up in the road. Went out and said, we'll put a pin here. Oh, you want 2 acres out? We'll put a pin here and here and here. Hour later,
And
no
how
cutting brush, no line of sight, no
how
nothing.
much was it?
$2,500. They're just beaming up to the satellite.
For an hour.
I have a
Uh-huh.
lot done.
I know.
It's $500.
But then they file it.
It's like a 500-yard line.
I'm just gonna pull sentiment of the board. Is the board okay if the Conservation Commission gets a price and comes back to us?
Yes.
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 Okay,
I think that's a path forward.
thank you.
If nothing else, we need to prepare for budget. When expenses on other high dollar items are going up 9%, our budget's looking great.
Kind of encroaching on the land up there too.
So
A guy who's now dead, I think, John Levan, right, he was the ATV guy, one of the ATV guys. And he had a camp up there, and he was being generous with the land that he thought he owned.
Okay, thank you.
all right, Mike,
Yes. I move we go into executive session under the. I don't have it in front of me, but I think it's VSA 313183. That's the one
One VSA.
What's it for?
to discuss personnel.
Yeah.
Yeah, one VSA 31383.
Donna's got. She's right there with.
I just went to the state website and they said actually to put it out a little bit different, 31318, but 1313 works.
I think Donna gets the sentiments.
And asking Tom to stay in. Rosemary, go home.
Thank you very much, Rosemary.
I'll second that.
Motion and second, further discussion? Will there be action coming out?
Yes.
Okay.
Thanks. Or will they?
Possible action coming out, not really
Possible.
sure if there is, I will let you know, or somebody here will.
So,
All those in favor signify by saying aye.
Aye.
All those opposed, the board is entering executive session at 9 sharp.